These are top 10 mind-blowing hidden secrets told on the Joe Rogan Experience. Episode number 2219. Donald Trump talks with Joe Rogan about the hidden JFK files, UFO secrets, and what he'd reveal if reelected.
Episode 2392. CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou tells Joe Rogan how revealing post-9/11 torture put him behind bars.
And I get a call from this Japanese diplomat, and he invites me to lunch. I said, great. We meet at a place on Capitol Hill. And I remember that lunch very well. I remember we talked about Israeli elections, we talked about Turkish elections, and we talked about the Arab-Israeli peace process. And at the end of the lunch, he says to me, and I should add, his English was so bad that we had to do the lunch in Arabic. So he said, what's next for you? And I said, well, I think I'm going to resign soon. I promised Senator Kerry I'd give him 2 years. It's been 2.5. I have 5 kids, and I really need to make some money and put my kids through college. And he goes, oh, no, don't do that. If you give me information, I can give you money. And I said, what the fuck is wrong with you? You have any idea how many times I've made that pitch? Shame on you, cold pitching me like that. And I got up indignantly and I walked out. And I walked, I mean directly without stopping, to the office of the Senate security officer. And I knocked on the door. I went in, I said, hey, I was just pitched by a foreign intelligence officer. And he goes, was it that damn Russian again? And I said, no, it was Japanese. He goes, Japanese? I said, I know, right? He goes, well, no, sometimes they poke around looking for trade information. I said, this didn't have anything to do with trade information. I don't think. I don't know. We didn't even get that far. He said, okay, do me a favor. He said, I've got a standalone computer here that's not connected to the internet. Write it up as a memo, and I'm going to courier it over to the FBI. So I sat there and I wrote the whole thing, blow by blow. The next day he calls me and he says, 2 FBI agents are going to come up and talk to you. And I said, okay. So they come up, I recount the whole lunch, and they said, all right, here's what we want you to do. We want you to call him back, invite him to lunch, and then try to get him to tell you exactly what information he wants and how much he's willing to pay for it. And I said, because I'm a patriot, I said, you want me to wear a wire? And they said, no, we're going to be at the next table. We're going to listen to everything. I said, but he only speaks Arabic. That's okay. We got a guy who speaks Arabic. Don't worry. I said, all right. So I call him. I invite him to lunch. We go to lunch, do the whole thing. But before the lunch, right before the lunch, they called and they said, operation came up. Just write us another memo. Do the lunch and write us another memo. I said, fine. So I write another memo. They asked me to do it a 3rd time, a 4th time, and a 5th time. The 5th time, he says to me, I have great news. He said, I got my dream job. I've been promoted and I'm going to be the deputy ambassador in Cairo. And I said, congratulations. I shook his hand, never saw him again. So I've written all this to the FBI. One day in January of 2012, so I've been out of the Senate for about 9 months, the FBI calls. And I look at my cell phone, it says Federal Bureau of Investigation. I was like, I wonder what that's all about. So I answer, and they said, hey, you remember that thing you helped us out with a year ago? And I said, yeah. And they said, we've got a similar situation and we need your help. And again, because I'm a patriot, I said, anything for the FBI. I kick myself now for saying it. I said, anything for the FBI. What do you want me to do? They said, come down to the Washington field office Thursday morning at 10. I said, done. I go down there the next Thursday, and they're waiting for me at the entrance, which I thought was odd. And we go up to a conference room, and they said, we're both cleared, SI, TK, Gamma, and then there were 2 compartments above top secret that I was cleared for that they said they were cleared for. And so if the conversation necessitated it, we could go into that area. So they said, well, before we start, just wanted to ask you, just read your book. It was great. I loved it. Hey, what about this that you said in your book? And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it was a cool story. What about this other thing? Yeah, I had fun. I said, it was kind of hard. It took me 9 months to write the book, 22 months to get it cleared. Oh, yeah, you got it cleared. Yeah, of course I got it cleared. 22 months it took me to get it cleared. I'm thinking, what an odd question. Then they start asking me about something called the Sam Adams Project. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And then the bad cop of the two says, we know you've been giving information to the Guantanamo defense attorneys. I said, what are you talking about? And then I said, wait a minute. Are you investigating me? And they said, yeah, and we're raiding your house right now as we speak. And I said, thank God. I said, I want to speak to my attorney right now. That was the only reason that they didn't arrest me. And one of the things that I learned, and this became painfully evident when they started arresting January 6th people, was the FBI in Washington likes to make its arrests on Thursdays because there are no federal arraignments on Friday. So you're in the DC jail Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, getting the shit beaten out of you. And then they arraign you on Monday. And then you want to make a deal just so you don't ever have to go inside that prison again. But because I asked to see my attorney, they let me go. So I called the attorney as soon as I got out of the office. Actually, when I was walking out, one of them went over to, I didn't know it at the time, but it was Peter Strzok. And Peter Strzok says, tell me he implicated himself. And the guy said, not really, no. We have to let him go. And so I grabbed my cell phone and I left, went to the attorney's office. They had already called my attorney and said they were charging me with espionage. I hadn't committed espionage. They knew I hadn't committed espionage. And in fact, since then, I'm fast forwarding a lot, 3 FBI agents have reached out to me. Well, 2 to my attorneys. 1 reached out to me directly to apologize, saying that this came from the top. They thought it was a BS case. They were sorry they were involved, but there was nothing they could do. One guy reached out to me through eBay, of all things, like to try to cover up the trail. He's like, listen, I've been losing sleep over this for the last 13 years. I just wanted to tell you how sorry I am. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I hope you feel better. My whole life fell apart. But I'm glad you got that off your chest. So it became a matter of just survival after that. You know, you have to take it seriously. I was facing 45 years in prison. And then when the Justice Department made a request for a proffer meeting, the proffer meeting is they'll give you a little idea of what they have against you, and then they make an offer. You can take it or leave it. And they offered me 45 years. And I said, I'm not doing 45 minutes. I didn't do anything wrong. And this woman, she became Deputy Attorney General for the criminal division under Biden. She said, take this deal, Mr. Kiriakou, and you may live to meet your grandchildren.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it was... I went home that night, and I went home. I'm ashamed to even say it. That night, we put the kids to bed. And my wife and I were watching TV, and she said, come on, let's go to bed. I said, I can't sleep. There's no way I'm going to be able to sleep. And she said, no, come on, let's go to bed. She knew I was going to go down into the garage, turn the car on, and just lay across the back seat. And she said, no, come on. You need to try to get some sleep. And she saved me that night. But 45 years? And so they waited 10 months before they were even willing to engage in a conversation. And then they offered 10 years on a Monday. On Wednesday, they offered 8. And on Friday, they offered 5. My lead attorney was this legendary guy named Plato Kacharis. And Plato said, you know, I've been a criminal defense attorney in this city for 52 years. And this is the first time I've ever seen them come down in time. He said, usually they offer you 10, you say no, the next offer's 15, then the next offer's 20. I said, why are they coming down in time? He said, because they have a shit case and they know it's shit. And that's why we're going to go to trial and we're going to win this thing. I said, great. Well, they stayed at 5. And then they came back and they said, 3.5. And I said, I'm going to trial. I'm going to win this thing. Turned out at the time, my best friend, his wife, had an uncle who was O.J. Simpson's jury consultant. And she called him for me and she said, hey, my friend John, he's in this situation. He's like, yeah, I read about this in the papers. He could use your help. He came up, didn't charge me a cent. He came up to Washington. We got him a security clearance, and which was another thing. We asked for a security clearance, and then the Justice Department called and said, the White House said Kiriaku's attorneys have enough security clearances. And I said, who at the White House said we have enough security clearances? Well, they had to tell us that it was John Brennan. No more attorneys for Kiriaku. Fisher cut bait. We're like, it's not up to John Brennan to decide if I have enough attorneys. Yeah, they have an unlimited number of attorneys, an unlimited budget. As it turned out, they spent $6 million to put me in prison. Was society really better off spending $6 million to put me in a low security prison for 23 months? So in the end, they said, best and final offer, 30 months, you do 23. Well, I was only the second American who had ever been charged with this crime of violating the Intelligence Identities Protection Act of 1982. The only other person that was charged with it was a woman named Sharon Scranage. She was a CIA secretary in Ghana in the 80s. And she was having an affair with a member of Ghana's intelligence service. And in the course of pillow talk, she revealed the names of all of the CIA officers in the station and the names of the sources they were running. And so the Ghanaians executed these guys.
Oh, my God.
She got 9 months in prison. 9 months. And they offer me 45 years for blowing the whistle on the torture program. So my wife and I stayed up all night, literally all night. And because Sharon Scranage had taken a plea, there was literally no case law. So what we found several things. We found several articles from the Harvard Law Review saying this law is unconstitutional. It violates the First Amendment, and it is prior restraint, right? Like it tells you in advance you can't say X, Y, and Z. But because there was no case law, you couldn't challenge it in court. And I said, well, can't we just appeal the charge and maybe, all the way up to the Supreme Court? And they said, yeah, we can do that post-conviction. And then you're going to be 45 years waiting and hoping that the Supreme Court does the right thing. We can't do that. So I decided by 6 a.m., I'm going to turn it down. I believed in my heart I hadn't done anything right. This was political. It was a vendetta by John Brennan. And Obama, by all accounts, I had friends, of course, who were still working at the agency and working at the CIA or at the White House, and they said that Obama had this Nixonian obsession with national security leaks, and it's because that came from Brennan. Obama was a senator for 2 years. He didn't have any experience doing anything, so he did what John Brennan told him to do. And Brennan said, "You got to crack down on these leaks. They do nothing but embarrass us." So I decided I'm going to turn it down. 6 a.m., I send an email to my attorneys. I had 11 attorneys. I was paying half of them, 5 of them. And then one of them writes back and says, put on a pot of coffee. We'll be at the house by 7. So they come to my house. The 4 main ones came to the house. Plato was the first one in. Now imagine this, like 80-year-old, 6'2", 280-pound, mean old man. He comes in, and I said, "Good morning, Plato." And he said, "You stupid son of a bitch, take the deal." Like that. I said, "Take the deal? You're the one that told me not to take the deal. You're the one who told me we're going to go to trial and win this thing." And he says, "I only told you that to keep your spirits up."
Oh, God.
And then the second one, his partner, Bob Trout, a sweet gentleman, a Southern gentleman. He says, "If you were my own brother, I would beg you to take this deal." And I'm like, now what do I do? And then the third, who was the guy, Mark McDougall, one of the best attorneys I've ever encountered in my life. And the one that I liked and respected the most out of all of them, I liked all of them and respected all of them, but I felt a connection to this guy. He pulls me aside. He was a little bit angry, and he said, "You know what your problem is? Your problem is you think this is about justice, and it's not about justice. It's about mitigating damage. Take the deal." And I looked at my wife. She's just like, "What are we going to do?" So I took the deal. And I got 2.5 years in prison, and they made me do every single day of it.
Episode number 1327. Joe Rogan and a former CIA agent expose secret military tech, biotracking, and the rise of the super soldier.
I guess I'm talking about it now. I'm not supposed to. But we're looking at military government organizations that are typically in the shadows, right? We're not releasing any sources and methods. We're not disclosing any classified secrets. But we're talking about elements and units, operational activity, events that before now have pretty much been in the shadows, and some incredible people. That's one of the best parts about this thing. It's been going out there and meeting some of these guys that are doing some of this high-speed shit. And it's pretty amazing. And
when they do release things like long after, like I was reading something, I forget what the case was about, but it was something about how the files won't be released under the Freedom of Information Act until 2080. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you?
Yeah, I know.
How do they make that like that was the thing with the Kennedy assassination, right?
And sometimes they roll it over, and it's not even then, right? So sometimes they extend that. Other times they don't, and so some information comes to light periodically. And so this does look at this show will be looking at some historic, but a lot of current things that are going on, and where the money goes, right? What are we spending our money on when it comes to this high-speed operations that the special forces and others are involved in? So it'll be very good. I was lucky to be able to work with, again, some really great people on the production side, but just also going out there and meeting some of these cats. They're just the shit that they do is even after being around a while as I have. It just amazes me.
Well, it's got to be constantly accelerating too, right? They're constantly coming up with new and spectacular things that nobody knows about. Until they employ them.
Right, exactly. And sometimes the shit stays on the shelf, right? It was like the running joke at the agency at the CIA was, we have a fantastic S&T group, a science and technology group, and they're the ones responsible, like Q from Bond, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones responsible for developing all the gear, responding to specific operational requirements. How are we going to do this particular thing? Well, let's develop a piece of kit that's going to allow us to do it. But the running joke is always that, they'll develop it and they'll show it to you before an operation, but then they'll put it back on the shelf because they don't want that shit getting out there, right? And people finding out that they've got it. So they'll give you like a 20-year-old piece of kit to use instead, and you'll be walking around with like a phone the size of a brick, knowing that they've got something high speed on the shelf.
Well, that's what everybody always thinks. Like when you talk to the average Joe on the street about technology in the government, they're always like, dude, the stuff they have that they probably don't tell us about. How much of that is real?
Yeah, it's pretty real.
Have you seen some stuff that made you go, holy shit?
Yes.
They can do that?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And
how much can you tell us?
Well, you know what? One thing that they're doing, and this is actually something I wanted to talk about today, because it's going to affect everybody. It's not just something that is going to affect people in the military or else in the intelligence community. But one of the things that they've been working on is, imagine you've got to rock up on a target. And before you do that, before you get the customers on site, and you're going to hopefully obtain some high value targets there at that location. Before you do that, you got
talking like euphemisms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you're going to nuke people.
Yeah. Before you're going to go in there,
blow terrorists into another dimension.
Well, sometimes actually, I was going to say sometimes you want to actually capture them and get their intelligence. We've gone past that, right? Because the years where we were getting our ass kicked for holding on to people in detention facilities, you know what that did? That pretty much convinced everybody that was involved in this to just whack them, right? Because then you don't have to deal with the aftermath. You don't have to worry about, are you going to get in trouble for interrogating somebody? Right, exactly. So that actually increased the lethality of operations. You started painting targets and just blowing the shit out of there rather than trying to grab the target and get their intel. That's a problem because then the pipeline dries up for the intel. But anyway, so imagine you got this site. The first thing you got to do is determine if your target's there, right? And it's not like that, the Tom Clancy movies where, you're looking through walls and all this shit. That technology, night vision devices, and that ability in low light conditions to monitor and to identify specific individuals has always been a problem. They've made great strides on it to the point now where in no light conditions, right, with the right stacked database, with the right information in that database, meaning the right amount of information about individuals, right? You're constantly populating this database with new faces or with new photographs of individuals that you're going after. With enough of that to sift through, they're getting to the point now with no light conditions that they can identify positively the targets in that room or the targets in that facility or in that building, whatever it might be. And that's pretty incredible.
I read that they can identify people by their heart rate.
Well, not just their heart rate, but I mean other biodata, right? I mean other.
But they can literally, with video, somehow or another, they can zoom in on you with some scanner and recognize that this is a particular individual because of their heart rate.
Yeah.
There was an article that was written about it, and I know that there's a company. Do you know what HECS is? HECS. It's a company that's been used pretty extensively by scuba diving community and now by the hunting community as well, because it blocks the electrical signal. HECS. It blocks the electrical signal that your body gives off.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think they're doing work with the military as well to develop suits that will somehow or another stop someone from being able to recognize your particular heart rate.
Right, and there's a lot of work on what they call the universal soldier.
Pentagon has a laser that I can identify people from a distance by their heartbeat.
Yeah,
it helps.
It helps if you have other data points, right? If you, but this is all part of, to some degree, what they refer to as the universal soldier, right? The fighter of tomorrow. And
Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That shit.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't remember Jean-Claude? Although he's doing like chip commercials now.
Is he?
Sure. You haven't seen him in a Doritos or whatever.
Dude, 70.
It is true.
Still do the splits.
Yeah. Well,
props.
Yeah. I don't know when that becomes useful, though, really.
The splits?
I don't see the splits. I mean, I've never actually, felt that was something I needed to accomplish in any given moment from an operational perspective.
If you're doing karate movies where you have to do the splits, it's true. Very important.
It's true. But so the universal soldier thing where you're it's the exoskeleton, it's the soft suit, it's all that data that you can acquire for that warfighter. How do you create the perfect environment on that individual as he's moving through an environment to be a more efficient, effective, lethal fighter? And things like that, identifying target, whether it's with a laser, whether it's with low light or no light conditions, where as you're rocking up on the target, you can do that. All these things, the ability to carry more gear, right? Hump it another extra, 10 kilometers, whatever it might be. It's pretty incredible what they're doing, and it's a joint. It's not just the military. They're working with companies like HECS, or they're working with the commercial sector and academics too. But anyway, I don't know. I disappeared down a rabbit hole.
The idea of like this universal soldier thing. Have you been paying attention to this Elon Musk Neuralink thing that he's coming out with, where they're going to somehow or another insert fibers into your brain and then have a Bluetooth-enabled device that you wear that's going to allow you to somehow or another interface with data at a much higher bandwidth? I don't know what the fuck any of those words mean I just said.
But that was good, though. That was good. It sounded like you understood it.
That's my trick.
So
repeat words.
Yeah, there comes a point. If you're talking about, that's going into a different area. That's going into civilian applications,
but I think the military application would be great for that too. If everyone could synchronize data, you could give them navigation in their head. Like if there's some sort of augmented reality where you could literally see the targets in front of you. Like if you had a map, say like if the Pentagon really does have this laser beam that can identify specific individuals, and you have a map of a building that's in your head, and they can identify the very location, absolute perfect location of each individual person in that room, and you could see that as you're running into this building. You're seeing like a 3D grid in front of you, and
Right.
you know, I mean, you could shoot them right through a fucking wall.
Right, and there does become a problem then. There becomes a problem of information overload, and when you get into that situation, right, everything starts to close down a little bit, right, and
Sure.
and so you've got to start pushing some of that away, and now what you end up doing is you get the offsite, command center relaying some of that information as needed, but that guy that's about to breach that door, he doesn't want
Right.
a lot of data points anymore. Now, having said that, knowing where the hostiles are on the other side of that door, that is key information. That's not rocket science, but but there's a lot that's going on. There's also the ability to monitor health of the individual, soldiers that are out there through the gear that they would then be wearing. It's an incredible effort that has been going on, and so to answer your point, a long rambling answer, I've seen some things that are pretty amazing.
You can't talk about it though.
No. Some of this shit actually we'll get into with the new show that's coming up sometime in fall. I don't have a release date, and again, I'm prescribed from talking about it, so I won't do that because I pay attention.
Some of the things that you saw, you'll be able to talk about.
Yes.
So how does the government do that? They just decide, well, listen, it's not a bad thing if you tell people about this. Like
I think that's right. Yeah, I think there's an element of some of it's not what you would refer to as classified. It's just not readily available public information, and it's not out there in the domain because people aren't aware of it or searching for it. Some of it does. I think you're right. Some of it is. Look, the military wants to say at times, look what we're able to do. We're doing this, and oftentimes it's because it's in a sort of a private-public cooperation, right? And so that encourages other companies with innovative technologies to step forward and get involved in some of this. And I guess that opens up all sorts of other, some people are out there saying, well, they shouldn't be working with the military. Well, fuck that.
Episode number 1114, Matt Taibbi reveals the rules of the drug trade, moving product, staying hidden, and surviving in both black and legal markets.
So let's talk about what we were just talking about. You wrote a book with a guy about drug dealing, and he was going to come on wearing a mask.
Yeah, he wanted to come on wearing a Barack Obama mask, actually. It's actually really funny. The whole story is really funny. I'm writing this book. I spilled it too. It's called The Business Secrets of Drug Dealing. You can find it at businesssecretsofdrugdealing.com, and I'm serializing it. But basically, somebody I knew for ages in a completely different capacity sort of came out to me last year and said, I've been a high-level drug dealer for a long time, basically my whole life. And wanted to tell his story about, sort of the whole progression of his life.
What kind of drugs?
Only things that grow out of the ground.
Okay.
So he started off. This is an African American guy. He started off, believe it or not, selling mushrooms. He sort of grew up half in the projects and half in an upscale suburb. And he, in the upscale suburb, he sold mushrooms, which he basically got through mail order at a time early in the sort of history of the internet when there were some loopholes about things.
You get spores, right?
Yeah, well, actually, you could get the actual...
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So he ends up having this whole career, and he wanted to sort of explain to me what the rules of the game were, and do sort of a book version of the 10 Crack Commandments. And so we sat down, and we couldn't quite figure out how to do it at first, but we ended up essentially doing a sort of fictionalized version of his life. And the progression is amazing because he goes from being a dealer in all these different parts of the country and different social spheres. He's in college. He deals to rich white kids. He deals on the street and in tough urban neighborhoods, and then ends up sort of in the legal business in this state. And
as a lawyer?
No. Legal marijuana. And so he's describing that world, which is not. There are a lot of misconceptions about it. There are some things about it that are not known terribly well. Like, what do you do when you work, at a farm and your crop tests dirty, with a contaminant. Not everybody just throws it away. A lot of that stuff ends up shipped across country, goes to other markets. And he sort of describes a lot of this.
Like, what kind of contaminants would that be? Like fungal or pesticides?
like a fungus, something like that. There are labs that basically have to clear, from what I understand, that have to clear each of the crops. And there are situations where, there's a whole bunch of crop and you got workers that have to be paid, and what do you do with it? And the legal market isn't big enough to accommodate all the stuff that's grown. And so there's sort of still, kind of a black market that goes on, and he describes this. And but even before that, it's just a fascinating book about all the different things that he learned in the course of his career about how to get do the job and not get caught, how to rig a load to drive cross country, how do you do a dummy car. He tells a story about how basically you want 4 cars, you want the guy in the front seat to look like a drug dealer, have a terrible record, drive badly. Basically to attract the police, and the third car is the load car. The second car is sort of watching to see if there's cops in either direction, and then the fourth car is basically driving up behind the load car to sort of prevent anybody from seeing the license plate and that sort of thing. And so he just talks about all this stuff, and it's fascinating. And it was a new kind of writing for me because I've never really done anything except straight journalism, and we sort of had to do it in narrative form. And so we're putting it out serially online right now, which is really cool.
So you did one of those change the names to protect the innocent sort
exactly.
of deal?
Yeah.
But,
or the guilty.
Yeah. But for the most part, based on facts.
Yes. The situations were, let's just say, realistic.
Right.
Yeah. And his, the observations were that he describes are all, things that he actually learned. The situations were, relatively close to things that actually happened. So, yeah.
That's interesting. So that's available now?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Again, it's businesssecretsofdrugdealing.com. It's kind of a new thing. I grew up a huge fan of serialized detective stories. I was a big fan of like Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, and I loved Black Mask magazine, which was the big pulp noir magazine in the 20s and 30s. And I grew up reading all those stories, and I always it was in the back of my mind always that I wanted to try this and write a book on a deadline. So I'm doing this now. It's basically co-written with this anonymous character who can't appear with me on shows like this anywhere because he's still not captured. And
so are there warrants out for this guy?
No, he's never been picked up.
Never been arrested?
Never been arrested. Nope.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sounds like a smart dude.
He is a smart dude. And some of his employers would be very surprised to know that he's got a hobby like this. It's funny, I knew him for years and didn't have the faintest clue that this was going on. So
did he keep a job in order to avoid suspicion?
So the book is actually structured with all these rules. Each chapter has rules in it. One of his most important rules is always have a job, and it's for a number of reasons. Number one, he talks about how when he was young, he worked at places like, Marriott or Applebee's. And he's like, if you can have the patience to serve people at an Applebee's and not blow up and scream at people, then you won't screw up a package. Like, in other words, if you can have the self-discipline to actually get through one of these jobs and not blow up and be crazy, then you're going to handle yourself well at a car stop.
That's fascinating. So he used it almost like as a discipline exercise.
He used it as a discipline exercise. He learned, among other things, like another one of his rules is dress like an off-duty Applebee's waiter, right? Like, do not dress. And he talks about this, about how most dealers, they learn their profession by watching movies. You know, there's no book out there. I mean, it's not like this generation is growing up reading like the old Iceberg Slim or Donald Goines novels or whatever it is. They're watching, The Wire or Blow or Ozark now or whatever it is. But dealers very often dress like dealers. You can kind of spot them, And he says that's exactly the opposite of what you have to do. Wear Sperry shoes, wear boring clothes, look like you're on your way to your freshman English class or whatever it is, and sound like a nerdy college kid when the cops pull you over, and all this stuff is sort of central to his whole worldview about how to avoid getting caught.
Wow, that would be a great book.
It is. It's really fun, and the fact that the co-author is actually a person who's pulling this off makes it really interesting, and it makes it a real challenge to write it too, because I had to kind of simulate his voice and kind of communicate to people what those situations were like and what things look like from his point of view. And obviously I'm white and he's African American, and that's tough. And but I think it works. It's kind of a cool story.
But it must have been a juicy, like when you found the subject, you must have been like, oh boy, we got something here. That seems like super juicy.
Yeah, no, it's so much fun. I haven't had this much fun, like fun writing anything for a long time, because most criminal memoirs, and again, I grew up a junkie in terms of reading this stuff. I love books that are written after the fact by people who were in crime. Like Papillon was one of my favorite books growing up. I mean, it's an amazing story about not just crime, but about prison and what's that like. But they're always written by people after they got caught, right? And so there's never that book by the person who's still out there and talking about what outlaw life is like successfly, still on the other side of the law. And that part of it is fascinating. It's just it's a completely new thing, and he has all these insights that I would never have thought about. Like he talks about how there's a thing he calls the hood price. Like when you're dealing selling to in black neighborhoods, even he charges a higher price because there are more problems that you inevitably run into when you're dealing in those neighborhoods, because there's more cops, which means more lawyers, which means more security, which means more attention to detail. When you deal to rich white kids, just nobody's paying attention, so there's less overhead, in the business,
wow.
which is fascinating. It's and he talks all about this, and he spent a lifetime kind of just keeping all this stuff in his head, always wanting to put it down, and it got to be too much, and he just sort of tapped me on the shoulder one day and said, "Can we have lunch? I just want to talk to you about something."
And how long had you known him before this?
I would say 3 years.
Wow.
3 years, 4 years. Yeah, something
That's
like
crazy.
That. Yeah, it was
wow,
very cool.
We had to trust you. Well, I'm glad we decided to not have him on, because he would get busted.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be how he would get busted.
About that. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't, like if you were on something and you had a mask on, people go, "That's Matt Taibbi's voice." You know what I mean?
Right.
There'd be somebody listening to him. Maybe he doesn't understand that there's millions of people listening.
I totally agree with you.
Hundreds of those people would go, "That's whatever.
Right.
That's Mike. That's John. Whatever his name is." They would get it.
Even the Unabomber got caught, and he only talked to like 2 people.
Episode number 1270, Joe Rogan and Lenny Clark dive into Jackie Gleason's UFO obsession and the rumor Nixon showed him alien 70. Joe Rogan and Lenny Clark dive into Jackie Gleason's UFO obsession and the rumor Nixon showed him alien bodies.
When I saw Gleason, Gleason was what I wanted to be. I just thought Jackie Gleason was just amazing, and I said, I want to be like that guy, because he was incredible. And it was, people didn't realize he was a stand-up, Not
I
great.
didn't know Gleason did stand-up.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
One night, 2-ton Tony Galenta was giving him shit. And
The boxer.
And Gleason heckled him, and Tony knocked him out.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, he was incredible, because I met Art Connie.
Jackie Gleason was obsessed with UFOs. Did you know that?
Nah, but I kind of dig it too, man.
There's a story. This guy told it to me. Some guy was a rock band dude. He told me the story, and I don't know if it's true. But the story was that Gleason was friends with Nixon, and
Right.
Nixon said, "You want to see some shit?" And
Yeah.
Nixon took him to
Area 51.
I don't think it was Area 51. I think it was Hangar 18, which is a Wright-Patterson
another
Air
one.
Force Base, and I think it was outside of Columbus, Ohio. And they supposedly had some fucking crashed UFO there, and Gleason built a replica of it, or had a replica of it built in his fucking backyard in New York.
Wow.
They went to the Homestead Air Force Base outside of Miami, it says.
Oh, okay.
wow.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I got a bullshit version of it. Pull up the actual version. Where are you getting this from?
I just Googled it. I mean, it's a rumored story, so I don't know if it's...
Yeah, that's how I got
Well-
it. I got it from a guy in a band. It might be bullshit, but he gave me some book on UFOs. And he was telling me about this, but that Jackie Gleason apparently was obsessed with UFOs.
Well, I believe there's got to be something out there.
Yeah.
I don't. We're it. I mean, that's it.
No,
We're-
I don't believe we're it.
I did a lot of USO shows, and I've been around the world, and I was every time I've done. I was in off the coast of Turkey someplace, and the commander of the base took me out for dinner afterwards, and I got him drunk. I got him pretty drunk. I was sober at the time. I got him pretty drunk, and I said, "Hey, man," he goes, "Let me ask you about Area 51." He goes, he got stone sober. He goes, "This conversation never happened," and he left, and I had to take a cab to find my way back to a nuke base that no one knows about.
Jesus.
Right. So then I'm at the dunes. This is how long ago that was, and I'm with these guys who are in the Air Force, and they said, "Man, we really like your show. We're fans of yours." I got them drunk, and I said, "Hey, man, what about Area 51?" And they said, "Mr. Clark, good night," and they walked away. So now, me and Mike are golfing with these Blue Angels, and he goes, "You're going to ask him?" I go, "No." The second year, we golf with them again. I go, "All right, fellas, tell me about Area 51. They go, "Well," he goes, "I was flying a plane, and I had malfunction, and I had to land there. And they came out, and they pretty much blindfolded me, took me into a building, and they fixed my jet within 35 minutes, and then put me back in place. You were never here." And I went, "Oh my God!" So I don't know what's out there.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That was an area where they were testing all sorts of military equipment. They were testing different new, like that's where the B-2 or the stealth bomber,
Right.
they were testing that there.
And the spy plane.
Yeah, they were testing a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of top secret stuff there.
Right.
Didn't necessarily have to be
do-
aliens.
I understand that, and I'm hoping that there is.
But he's still trying to find out.
But I'd love to go there, man. Oh man, but you can't even drive. If you drive up there, Joe, by the time you get your camera out, they're on you.
Yeah.
And tell you, well, get out of here. We'll lock you up. It's not good. So
They don't even go there anymore. They've moved to a new area. They've actually, because it's so heavily scrutinized and
Yeah.
because of Google Earth and all sorts of different ways you can see things, they've actually moved to another area.
Well, I read everything I can find about that too, and I think I read the book Area 51. It was 2 years ago, and basically at the end of the book, it was like Hitler had these, his guys experimenting with the Jews and put their arms on different ways, and had an aircraft that looked like a spaceship, and it crashed. And these people came out with them crazy arms. And, well, they're aliens, and that was in the book, So that kind of shut the shit out of that.
I know
there.
Hitler did experiment with some sort of disc type air vehicle. Yeah, they did, but I don't know if they ever got it off the ground or.
Yeah.
or what the deal was. But the most interesting story is the story of Robert Lazar, Bob Lazar, who was a guy who worked at Area 51, and he got fired because his wife was cheating on him, and they were recording all of his phone calls and taping all of his conversations, and they found out that his wife was cheating on him. They thought that he was going to be emotionally unstable, and so they didn't tell him why. They just released him, and so then he brings friends to watch these, what he said were alien crafts that they were experimenting with, and they were flying these things around that had some super advanced propulsion system that they were asking him to help back engineer, and he brought friends to do that, and then they got arrested for doing that. And when he did that, then he started talking about it. So he's been discredited by a bunch of people, but I don't know who's telling the truth. He says that they wiped his college record so that no one, but people said they went to school with him, and he definitely did work for the government, but under what capacity, who knows. But his story's fascinating, and I want it to be true. You hear it, you want it to be true.
Joe, they used to fly the team of people that worked at Area 51 from Burbank.
Yeah.
Every day, fly them in, they'd work, and then fly them back. It was like they didn't stay over.
There was that one airport outside of Vegas. It was right outside where the Riviera was.
Yeah.
You could actually look out and see the airport. And they would fly the people from there in these unmarked jets.
Yeah, I want it to be true.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you want it to be true.
Episode number 1481. Adam Egget recounts surviving 3 years in a brutal cult.
Oh, we didn't even talk about your cult, dude.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Yeah, we forgot.
We have time?
Fuck yeah.
All right, good.
We have plenty of time. I
All
want
right,
to hear
good.
it.
I don't even know where to fucking begin.
So, when did you first become a part of the cult?
So I got sent away to this cult. It was like a cult boarding school.
How old were you?
I was 14. I just turned 14 in
Did your parents know what was going on, or did they think?
No, they had no idea.
What did they think it was?
They heard it was for a place for troubled kids to get some help. And then, yeah, they had no idea it was a cult.
Wow.
No
so
idea.
what was it?
It was...
Does it have a name?
Yeah, it's called CEDU. It's CEDU. And they called it that because you could see yourself how you want to be, and then you do something about it.
Damn, that sounds like something that Tony Robbins would say.
Yeah. It used to be, I think it was created originally from something called Synanon, which I think is more well known, but it's,
that sounds like some cheesy, not Tony Robbins, but like a low level,
like a
online,
lesser
motivational guy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What I want you to do is see and then do.
Yeah.
Sounds so simple, and it is for you. You're going to see what you don't like, and you're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, my God.
Thanks for being here at the Hilton in Alhambra.
So this is pre-internet. You're 14 years old.
Yeah. 1993. I was a big cutter. I was living in Tarzana. I grew up in Tarzana. Yeah.
Ooh.
Big cutter.
What was that about?
I don't know.
Were your friends doing it?
No. I was doing it. My dad left, and then I started cutting. I kind of got, and then I was getting into fights at school, and I was punching holes in my wall. I was an angry kid, and so it was sort of an outlet, I guess. And then they kept sending me up to the Northridge psych ward. So I got sent away up to Northridge in the youth psych ward, and then
what did they say about you?
I don't remember specifically what they said. I think they just told my parents. They didn't tell me anything. I think they told my parents probably.
And your parents didn't have a sit down with you and say, "Hey, psycho."
After the third time, yeah.
Look what the doctor says.
My mom didn't know what to do with me, but after the third time, they said, after the third time I got sent up to the psych ward, they said, if you do this one more time, anything else, we're going to have to send you away somewhere a little, more serious probably.
Whoa.
And so I did it again, and then we took a tour up to, they said we were just going to go up to take a tour of the school that I could be sent away to. That was it. They said, if you do it one more time, we're going up and we're going to tour this school. And if you do this one more time, then we're going to bring you back here and drop you off. You're going to stay there.
Wow.
And so we went up to the San Bernardino Mountains, and we got out of the car. I toured the campus. It was a beautiful campus. It was like this giant cabin up near Lake Arrowhead, and it used to be owned by the Houstons, Walter and Angelica and John Houston. And they were telling me, just about the school and stuff and all the rules. There were a lot of rules. They called them agreements. And then my parents, I came back and went and talked to my parents, and they told me that I was staying there. And I just said, well, fuck you. And then I left, and they strip searched me, and then and that was it. Then I went into what they call a wrap, and wraps are intense. So the wrap was this 3-hour long, kind of like a group therapy session, but everyone is just sort of. Oh my God, it was so bizarre. So I had only been at the school two hours. I'd just been strip searched, and I'd been put into one of these 3-hour wraps, and the girl next to me was like rocking back and forth on the chair, sort of like sobbing quietly. And then the kid next to me got up, walked across the room, and switched seats with someone, because you weren't allowed to talk to someone next to you. You had to be across the room. And that kid started screaming at the kid right next to me over here. And then this one just started screaming at the floor, and like started like screaming at the floor like, I hate you, Mom, I hate you, Dad. And then someone started putting all the like this Kleenex, all these tissues and I'm like, why are they putting all these fucking tissues here? And then you just see all the snot and spit and like mucus empty out of this girl's body, because she's just screaming, and like blood vessels are popping in her fucking and she's crying and screaming, and it was the most disgusting thing you've ever seen.
Fuck.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be here for 2.5 years, and this is going to happen 3 times a week. There was a lot of sleep deprivation. They had
what did your parents think it was?
They thought they were told by the counselors at the psych ward that it was like a place for troubled kids when you didn't know what else to do with them. And
so
it was
the
like
psych ward was in on it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And so I think...
do you think they were fooled? Or do you think that they knew what was going on?
I think that maybe they were fooled. I think they were probably fooled. I don't think anybody
this was
really
pre-internet,
knew.
right? It'd
Yeah,
probably
this
be
is all
easier to fool
pre-internet.
people because you can't do a wiki on them.
Yeah. I mean, the
Can't Google
school,
search
the
'em.
government finally shut them down.
So they were accredited, though, or something. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
I think
approved
so.
by.
Yeah. It had been, around, CETA was there for, I think, since the 70s, I want to say, or maybe even
Jesus
earlier, maybe the
Christ.
late 60s. Or
That's the
early
scary
70s.
ones.
Yeah.
The ones with legs.
Yeah.
You know?
But it was a really weird mix of students. It was like, I think Paris Hilton went there at one point, and then there was like just a lot of kids there on court orders, and there was, it was just a real weird mix of people.
Wow.
But they had these 24-hour, what they called prophets, and they were all named after a different chapter of the book called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. You go through the program with a peer group. So everybody that was enrolled at the same time as you in the same like 2 months, you go through these almost like these rites of passages called prophets, and there were these 24-hour long workshops, and they're all based around each chapter of this book called The Prophet. And the first one was called The Truth, and it was like the truth will set you free. So you basically tell everything you've ever done that you felt bad about, and it's like confession almost. And what was odd is that all the staff members there were like 2 or 3 staff members who were the counselors at the school. They had no real credentials. They weren't like therapists, but they acted as therapists. But they all had fucked up lives too. And so, and some of them, and so some of them, like there were people that really got off on the power, like many cult leaders do. And then there were some that were former students there that were sent away for being bad kids. So there were staff members like confessing to, I heard one guy claimed that he set a homeless guy on fire. Another one would strangle cats.
Oh, Jesus.
And they're like, these are the fucking people that are teaching
fall
us?
asleep around a dude who used to strangle cats?
No, you couldn't fall asleep in the prophets. Right.
I mean, eventually.
I mean,
that
I
guy's
think
in
they
the
lived
building.
off campus.
Oh, okay. Fuck, man. That sounds insane.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
They all have that element in them. That's a Scientology element too, right? And then also Catholicism. You have to confess.
Right.
There's a thing that Scientology does where they go over all sorts of aspects of your life, and they like save that.
Yeah,
they
I saw
save
that
all
in
those
The
recordings,
Master.
and then when you want to talk shit, They're like, "Oh, well, you thinking about leaving?" Hey,
Oh,
bro.
fascinating.
Yeah, we're gonna tell everybody about that thing that you do with clowns.
I wonder why they would do it here then, because we had no power to, like, we were all underage. I
Well,
think
that's
they
a
signed up.
different organization.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what they're doing is probably getting power over you. I mean, it seems
Yeah.
like that's what those things are always about. They're always about power, and then it's usually the main dude's banging everybody's wife.
Right.
And they get a lot of money.
The teachers, there were teachers that were for sure banging the students. There's no doubt.
You didn't know going in that it was a cult. When do you
No.
think you figured it out?
Until a fucking 2 years after I had graduated.
Oh my god. So 2 years after it's all over, you're sitting around going, "Hey."
I think like I started talking to someone, they're like, "Didn't you think that was a little weird when they did this or that?" And I was like, "Now that you mention it, yeah. Wait a minute."
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had to do 14 days through Joshua Tree, which was beautiful, which was great. But then a 4-day solo where they give you like a bag of trail mix and some water and a whistle. And they say, "All right, we'll come back in 4 days." But as a 14-year-old, it's like, what the fuck?
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was intense.
That's
but
crazy.
The worst
Where was this? Where are the woods?
in Joshua Tree.
That's a fucking sketchy area.
Yeah.
14 years
in
old?
the desert. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Where are we supposed to get your water?
You had a big bag of water that was
big
gonna
bag of water for 4
bag of water
days?
for 4 days.
How big is this bag?
I don't know. I can't.
You have your own
remember.
bag?
Yeah. Yeah, you were alone. They give you an area about half the size of this room, the studio.
What?
And they say, "All right, we'll come get you in 4 days. Here's 4 granola bars, a bag of trail mix, and a bag of water, and a whistle in case you get bit by a rattlesnake or some
Oh
shit."
my god!
And then
so where are they when this is happening? They're nowhere
They
near you.
said they were around and they monitor. I think they monitor you, so they probably saw a lot of beating off. 14 years old. I think I
See,
spent most of my days.
If I was a 14-year-old and I came up with a cult, that would be one of the rules.
What was the rule? No beating off?
No. I'd be like, you're going to all be by yourself for 4 days. You get 4 granola bars and a bag of water. Like, it sounds like something a 14-year-old would come up with as far as the
It
rules.
sounds like an episode of fucking Fear Factor.
And here's a whistle if you get bit by a rattler. I'll be over the top of the hill. You won't see me, but I'll be able to hear you. Like, that sounds like a 14-year-old.
I'll never forget too when we came out. They told us Kurt Cobain had just killed himself. It was 94. But I remember if you get in trouble, they put you on something called a full time, and that was never fun because it was like. You had no. It was the amount of time of the full time was in the turn. So it was based on the staff member. It was either you ran away or you had sex with another student or I know.
That happened?
Yeah,
Kids are
fuck yeah.
banging.
Not me.
In between snotty screams.
Yeah, a lot of
Fucking
primal
it up.
scream therapy.
Bro,
They
that
would,
sounds so-
but on a full time, like you wake up and you have to like try and dig out a stump that's been there since the 70s. No one was ever gonna fucking take it out. The biggest stump you've ever fucking seen. I remember when I got enrolled, the first thing I saw was a kid and a pickaxe, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Bro, that's why they have dynamite.
Yeah, and
You're supposed to dynamite those things.
Right. Well, they used it for full times, but you're not allowed to laugh or sing or no human contact. You can't talk to anybody for 3 weeks.
Oh my god, they're mind
That's how
fucking
long I
you.
was. Yeah, they mind fucked you. There was something called smushing, where everybody. It was like you walk into this giant house every night, and everyone is telling each other their life stories. But it looked like, you remember Jonestown when like the 909 people had just drank the Kool-Aid?
Yes.
And it was just body on top of body. That's what it looked like. Everyone's just cuddling with each other.
Oh my god.
And it's like all the staff members are fucking rubbing hair of
Jesus
like the girls.
Christ.
You're like, this seems highly inappropriate with like girls, 13-year-old girls' head in their lap.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
it was trippy. But yeah, our buddy, Jeff Garland put me in touch with this fantastic writer who writes a lot of episodes of Better Call Saul, and we're almost done with our pilot. We're going to pitch it in about a month.
I feel like that's one that's going to be fascinating to see how they play that narrative out. Like, whether they will show that kind of shit, like a 13-year-old
Right.
girl in a guy's lap. Like, that seems like You can't even do that.
We'll see.
You can't even do that in fiction. You know what I mean? You'd have to imply it.
That's a good point. Well,
Even
I
if
mean,
you
if everybody's
implied it-
fully clothed,
The problem is it really happened,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like it's fiction. So
Right.
if you were creating this kind of fiction, you're putting it out, people would be like, what? You sick fuck? Why did you even think of that? But you're not doing that.
that's true.
Yeah,
So
you're
that's a plus.
relaying some crazy shit that you actually experienced. And how many years were you there for?
Almost 3. Wow. Yeah. Some of the exercises were crazy. They did this one called Lifeboat where they choose 2 students. I was one of the students they chose. And you're on a chair and you can only save 2 people. And all your best friends and shit are sobbing and they're like, oh, please pick me. And you have to look each person in the eye and tell them why they die.
What the fuck?
And then everyone had to write their own eulogy. It's fucking weird. A girl slit her own throat.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And another kid jumped off a cliff.
When they get into it in the first place, are they doing it because it's been done to them? Like some of them, clearly, right? Some of them seems like they were a victim
The staff
of it. when they were-
members, for sure. That's why I know the one who set the homeless guy on fire. I know that for sure. That's why he did it. He got put through this bullshit. He was going to inflict it on somebody else.
Bro,
Yeah,
what the fuck?
garbage people. And then the craziest thing was maybe about 7 or 8 years after I graduated, a lot of kids would split. I split. You run away, but then you get caught, or you walk, or you come back to the school once you find out your parents aren't going to take you out. But a lot of kids never came back, and we just. That was just the fact to the kids. We don't know what the fuck happened to them. They would always tell us that the parents pulled them out of the school. Some of the kids that ran away and never came back. Oh. But it was on the side of this giant, almost like a cliff, this backside of a mountain. And some kids would walk down into town through the road, and some kids, they said, would run away and go down the backside of the mountain. And they said some kids died going down the backside. Some kids got kidnapped. Who fucking knows? But I found out about 7 or 8 years after the club was closed, they found out that there was actually a serial killer that was working at the school. He was like the night janitor kind of guy. And confessed to murdering like a handful of kids that we thought ran away. And he got caught for something else and then confessed to all these murders he had committed over the last decade. And 4 of them were kids while he was working up at the campus.
Holy shit.
Crazy. And that was while I was
shit.
there, yeah. Bonkers.
Fuck.
Pretty wild.
So it took you a few years. Was it a relationship that you were in where a girl was explaining to you?
No, it was while I was talking to former students.
Oh.
And then it started opening my eyes, and I was like, oh, yeah.
So it wasn't talking to someone who wasn't in it.
Right.
It was talking to someone who was in it.
Yeah.
So together you were like going, hey, I've talked to some other people.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's not what 14-year-olds do.
Right.
Fuck, man.
And then when Facebook, it was even longer than that, because I think then when Facebook came out, then it was like there were all these groups, and everyone's like, yeah, we were in a cult.
In fact, once you got out and you realized you were out, and you talked to all the other people that were out too, and you all realized that you were out, how did it affect did you have to like remap those years in your head? Did you have to kind of think about what life is really like?
It was interesting because I got out when I was 16, so I had to go out. As soon as I got out, I had 2 more years of high school, so I got thrown at down the street at Taft. I went to Taft High School in Woodland Hills, and then did a couple more years there, but it was tough to get reacclimated, and then I didn't know, I had to retrain my brain almost. Like I felt like I knew. It was almost like I knew what they were trying to do. I almost felt like I was being brainwashed, and we were taught to self-police each other, and I may
so
have
it's like
had
North Korea style, like you rat each other out.
Yeah. Otherwise, they would put you on a full-time, and you'd have to fucking dig out a stump for 3
So when you
weeks.
say we were forced to self-police each other, were you forced to self-police yourself or other guys?
Ourselves and others.
Oh, okay. So you had to rat out people too.
You'd have to write a dirt list every week. Which
How do you recover? How do you go, hey, this is all bullshit?
I think it took some time. It took years, but I was one of the lucky ones. I was like, you know what? I did it. I took the positives. I was like, you know what? It wasn't all bad. I learned some tools, and if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I'm not the worst fucking guy in the world. So I made it out. I survived. Fuck it, right? There were a lot of people that wouldn't let go. They would just hold on, and to this very day, they hold on so tight to this bitterness and this anger, and they can't sleep at night, and all they think about is what they went through. They lost 3 years of their life. I do hate that. I do bummed out that I missed out those 3 years of
not if the script gets sold.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on, man.
That's true.
That's earned character.
Exactly.
That's like, we're talking about with Joey Diaz. Like, you earned this.
I not only do I not regret it, there's many, many, many days, more days than not, that I wish I could go back and do it all over again. I swear to God.
Why?
I don't know.
Because it was fun, I bet.
There was camaraderie. There was it was like there was something about it. I didn't have to. I had all that other bullshit to worry about, but I didn't have to worry about a roof over my head, job, all the other bullshit that you have to worry about as an adult.
They say that about prison.
Yeah,
you get
I'm
institutionalized.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
Episode number 2327. Joe Rogan and AJ Gentile explore the mystery of crop circles and the strange forces behind them. Episode number 2174. Joe Rogan and Annie Jacobson reveal how just one mistake could trigger nuclear. 1302. Joe Rogan and Ed Calderon expose the brutal truth behind cartels and Sicario.
Sicario, that movie Sicario came out.
Yeah.
Those people are looking at that movie. So a lot of the followers are suspicious of that. Benicio del Toro having an MP5. I was the only Mexican rocking an MP5 submachine gun down there, right? So it's like, is that,
What did you think of those movies?
Oh, horrible. It's horrible. Unrealistic, They should, if somebody doesn't hire me, I'll do it for free. Just, I'll consult for free on that, and I'll make it look a bit more closer to what it is. But it's... the main thing is how everybody saw that movie, and that's how they would, that's the reality, how fiction is kind of a basis for reality. So Sicario 2 comes out, and it's basically the United States declaring the cartels a terrorist organization, And I saw that, and I was like, Usually fiction kind of has a way of influencing reality further on the line, That Denzel Washington movie called Siege, where a bunch of terrorists attack New York and then militarize New York, and that's kind of like a precedent for 9/11. So you see Sicario 2, and then we're gonna terrorists. Trump now says they're thinking about declaring the cartels as a terrorist organization. That's pretty interesting, mainly because realistically, Mexico has been calling them terrorists forever.
What did you think about that? About Trump doing that? Do you think that actually is something that could happen?
If you're going to militarize efforts against it, not just consider it a law enforcement type situation, I think people should be afraid down there if you do go that route. But just realize that's going to be open warfare, not in a foreign country across the ocean. It's going to be right next to your border.
Yeah, where people can walk across.
Yes, or make things happen down there that will affect you up here.
Yeah,
in a very real way.
And it'll get ugly before it gets better.
I hopefully it doesn't, but that's realistically.
But if that doesn't happen, if they don't treat it as a terrorist organization and try to have some sort of impact on it, what could be done?
I mean, I think culturally, they're trying to get us ready for that. I don't know. I mean, I think that's what's happening. You see a lot of the cross, borders. U.S. military assets training Mexican Marines down there and having an open relationship with them. You see that, and the push is to maybe, preparing for something. I think they're preparing for something. What could that be? I don't know.
So what we get about it publicly is just a small sliver of the actual conversations that are being had.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of misdirection. There's a lot of misdirection that I see on my side.